Welcome to History Bedtime Stories, in bed in our pajamas. And tonight we're starting with night number one, president number one of the history of presidential pets. There have only been 2 American presidents in the entire history of the office who have not had a pet while president of the United States. And far many more had tons of pets. There have been menageries at the White House. There has been congressional intersection to take animals away from presidents. There have been pygmy hippopotamuses and little white mice. There have been dozens of dogs and dozens of cats, goldfish and crocodiles in the Conservancy, and we're going to cover them all. Starting tonight with president number one, George Washington. George Washington served as President of the United States of America following the Revolutionary War. He is the only president with no political party, and his tenure in office was from 1789 to 1797. Now, the President and First Lady, Martha Washington, had many pets for years preceding the presidency and American Revolution. They kept horses on their Mount Vernon estate, as well as several donkeys. Martha Washington had a parrot named Polly that was purchased for her from a captain of the West India Trading Company in 1773. Polly was just the first in a series of birds the First Lady would have. The president had war horses named Nelson and Blueskin that both fought alongside him in the Revolutionary War, and the Washingtons as a pair had tons of different breeds of dogs, including St. Bernards, Spaniels, Newfoundlands, and hounds. But it is the hounds that the Washingtons were most proud of. President Washington considered himself a breeder and was after his goal, his Shangri-La, his perfect dog was a foxhound. He wanted to breed the most brilliant fox hunting dog on the planet. Word of this reaches his dear friend following the American Revolution, the Marquis de Lafayette. Now, Lafayette was a Frenchman who fought for the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War and who enjoyed a very close and some would say tender relationship with the president, much more like father and son than commanding officer and subordinate. But when Lafayette hears that Washington is trying to breed the perfect foxhound, he sends 7 prime specimens of French hound to Washington. In order to send them, he goes to John Quincy Adams, who will later be an American president. John Quincy Adams was in Europe as the minister from America to England. Lafayette goes to him and says, I want you to take these 7 hounds, take them to the president, take them to George Washington. John Quincy Adams is in no position, absolutely no position, to tell a hero of the Revolutionary War, a friend of the president, like, no, I don't want to take your dogs on a multi-week, possibly multi-month journey across the sea. He just had to take them. So he takes these 7 French hounds, he brings them to Washington, and when he gets to America, he's supposed to take them all the way to President Washington. He leaves them in New York City at the docks. He pretty much says, I got them to America, that's what I was asked to do. Washington, if you want them, go get them. George Washington never forgives John Quincy Adams for abandoning, in his words, these dogs. But these 7 French hounds eventually make it to Mount Vernon, and it's there that President Washington breeds them with his black and tan hounds. This new breed comes to be known as the American Foxhound, and the president was obsessed. I do want to point out the fact that the Washingtons were able to keep this many dogs, the fact that they were able to have a kennel on their Mount Vernon estate about 100 yards behind the house, the fact that they were able to have grooms for their dozens of horses is because they weren't paying for that labor. They had slaves, and these enslaved people were often given the jobs of caring for the animals. The French hounds, when they arrived, were so aggressive. Washington notes in his journal that he assigned a slave to be at every mealtime for these animals and oversee that they didn't fight or injure each other in getting their food. So the Washington myth of all of these animals is very much supported by the unpaid labor of the enslaved people kept at Mount Vernon. But Washington was involved. He chose the breeding pairs. He would visit the kennel every single morning. He would often visit the kennel in the evenings when he was on the residence. And he named each of the dogs himself. And I'll say this for President Washington. He was a creative pet namer. Among the many names of his foxhounds, Tipsy, Tippler, Drunkard, Sweet Lips, and Vulcan. But Vulcan was his prized beast. He is referred to in a Mount Vernon document as so big a young boy could ride him like a pony, with powerful jaws and an insatiable appetite. That insatiable appetite was on display when Mrs. Washington had ordered a beautiful Virginia ham to be served at a very important dinner. This ham would have cost between $8 and $10 at the time. That's like paying $600 for a piece of meat today. So this would have been expensive, it would have been dear, it would have been precious, and Vulcan, in his big badass dog way, goes running into the kitchens of Mount Vernon, snaps this ham off of the butcher block, runs with it to the kennel, and the enslaved kitchen staff is horrified as they chase after this large and aggressive dog trying to get the ham back. They fail, Vulcan wins, and eats better than any man or beast in Virginia that evening. But when the First Lady later asks, like, where's the ham? All the other things I've asked for are here. Where the hell is the ham? And she's told that Vulcan made off with it. It's said that the president guffawed with laughter, thought it was hysterical, laughed his butt off. And when you're dining with a president and they laugh, you pretty much have to laugh. So all of the guests went without ham but had a good chuckle, and Vulcan had an excellent meal. I hope we'll see you tomorrow night right here, same time, same place, for night number 2, president number 2, and a whole bunch of new presidential pets. Wash your hands, be nice to each other.